Hi everyone. So last class we left off at the very end of the second line of defense, which is just generalized inflammation, which is fever. It's a way that you can attack any sort of pathogen that is trying to infect you, but not in a very specific way. You attack any sorts of things, but you don't have a specific mechanism to attack just specific bacteria or specific viruses. Now, for our third line of defense in our immune system, we have our adaptive immunity, which is the immunity that you acquire throughout your life through exposure to different pathogens, and you're not necessarily born with this immunity, you acquire it. And it's very specific, so it's a specific defense, and it actually contains memory, which means that once you are infected by a specific sort of bacteria, you can attack this bacteria, and later on you will have memory as to how to defeat that bacteria, so that the next time that same bacteria infects you, you have a much more efficient and fast way to attack that bacteria and get much less sick. So our specific defense immunity with memory, it contains lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are a particular white blood cell, a specific type of white blood cell, and as the name suggests, it is found in the lymphatic system. They are transported and produced by your lymphatic system. That's why they're called lymphocytes. The two types of lymphocytes we will be talking about are the B cells and the T cells. The B cells are responsible for something that's called your humoral response. Humoral comes from humus, which is basically the humors, which are basically the fluids of your body. So I'm going to explain to you why they're called humoral response in a second. And basically what the B lymphocytes have the ability to do is that they produce antibodies. And I'm also going to talk about how antibodies help you combat disease. You also have the T cells, which are also another type of lymphocytes, and they are responsible for your cell-mediated response. We'll talk about that later on. And instead of producing antibodies, what they do is that they're the direct attackers of your own cells that have been infected by different pathogens. Both B cells and T cells, they're going to respond to something that are called antigens. You've already been exposed to this word in the blood type subunit. Antigens are going to be these cellular name tags. If you recall, if you are blood type A, that means that you have a cellular name tag in the cell membrane of your red blood cells, which is type A. So you have some proteins in the red blood cells which signify that this red blood cell is type A. Those are your antigens, so they're cellular name tags. And not only do blood types have cellular name tags, absolutely everything has cellular name tags. Absolutely everything has antigens. That includes different pathogens, different bacteria, different viruses. So all the cells in your body have your self antigens, or antigens that are recognized as your own. So since they're self antigens, there's no response from your white blood cells to your own cells in your body, because your white blood cells can recognize that they're cells from your own body, that there's no need to attack. Okay? Cells that are not from your body, they have foreign antigens. What do they cause? They cause the response from white blood cells. What are some antigens that can be foreign? For example, pathogens, virus, bacteria, parasites, fungi, toxins, all of those sorts of things are going to have foreign antigens in the surface of their cells, and that's going to allow the white blood cells to attack and to know that they are foreign. There's also non-pathogens, which means that they're not really organisms that are outside your body that are trying to infect you. They're non-pathogenic, but they're still causing you disease, like cancer cells or transplanted tissues or pollen. They're non-pathogenic, they're not organisms, but they still contain antigens because they're foreign to you. So cancer cells are not, the reason why I'm saying cancer cells are foreign to you is because they have mutations in their DNA that have them produce antigens that allow other white blood cells or other immune system cells to know that they are cancerous and they're not good for you. Transplanted tissues are foreign to you. They're going to have different antigens in the surface of their blood cells that are going to tell your immune system that they're foreign, and they're going to make your immune system want to attack. The same thing goes for pollen, which is a main cause of allergies. We're going to see that later on. Okay, so let's go a little bit back into this idea that you have two different types of immune system responses. So within your third line of defense. So if you talk about the two different types of responses that your immune system can have, you're talking about the humoral and the cell-mediated. So the first thing that's going to cause any sort of immune system response is that a pathogen encounters the immune system. Okay, so a different foreign organism or a foreign body enters your system and causes the immune system to get triggered. The immune system is going to produce two types of immunity: the humoral immune system, which is going to activate your B cells or your B lymphocytes, and the cell-mediated response system, which is going to activate the T cells. So basically what the B cells are going to do is it's going to produce all of these antibodies. If you remember, these clip sort of looking proteins are antibodies, and they're going to attack different foreign organisms, okay, by attaching to the antigens of the foreign organism. The T cells are going to do something a little bit different. Whenever you get attacked by a bacteria, by a virus, that virus or that bacteria can actually enter your own body cells and start infecting from inside the cells. So what the T cells actually do is that they identify all your own body cells, your own body cells that are infected by viruses or by bacteria, and actually cause your own body cells that have been infected to die off. Okay, because usually what happens is that the bacteria or the viruses that enter this cell uses the cell to reproduce. So you want to kill that cell so that it doesn't actually let that bacteria and virus reproduce and propagate throughout your entire system. So the humoral or B cells, how do they respond? They respond by eliminating extracellular or things outside the cells that are antigens, while the cell-mediated response, which has to do with the T cells, will eliminate intracellular, intra in science is inside, so antigens that have already infected inside the cells. Intracellular antigens versus outside extracellular antigens haven't infected the cells just yet. So let's look at the humoral response. Humoral response, as I said before, has to do with the fluids in your body. So the B lymphocytes or the B cells are looking for all of the viruses, bacteria, and pathogens that are found in the fluids in your body. So they're going to be looking for them in the intracellular fluid, in the blood, and in the lymph. Okay, so it's going to attack foreign antigens in blood, lymph, or intracellular interstitial fluid. Okay, there you go. Interstitial fluid. How are they going to attack it? They're going to produce specific antibodies that will attack specific antigens. So a specific virus is going to lead to the production of specific antibody that will only attack that virus. You have different types of B cells. There's B cells that are in the plasma and are immediately producing antibodies all the time to attack any sort of antigen that's coming into your body, and it is a very rapid response. And you're also going to produce B cells that are called memory B cells, and we're going to talk about that later on. So just know that there's two types of B cells: the ones that are already attacking and that attack really fast, and the ones that maintain the memory of that attack. So what are the antibodies that the B cells produce going to do to any invading cells? So as you guys already saw this, you saw this with your blood types. These antibodies are going to attach to the antigens of the foreign organism. What these can actually do is that these can tell the macrophage. If you recall, there was a phagocytic white blood cell at the very beginning of the presentation of last class, that I was talking about how these macrophages are a second line defense, because they basically eat anything that is foreign. When something that is foreign contains antibodies attached to it, it is much easier for the macrophage to actually identify that as foreign and eat it up. So it helps the macrophage identify what to eat up and what to kill. You can also simply block whenever you attack some organisms, some foreign organisms with antibodies. You can block them from infecting you, and you can also agglutinate them. So this is a word you're familiar with. If the antibodies can accumulate and aggregate all of these different foreign organisms, then they can agglutinate them, and they make them so that they're no longer functional and no longer able to infect you. Okay. So basically, we're not going to go into this part of this explanation just now because it's a bit confusing. But basically what happens is that the antibodies are able to attack and combine with the antigens of a foreign organism, and that causes a whole bunch of new antibodies to be secreted, and that also causes a whole bunch of new B cells to be produced in order to continue creating antibodies to continue the attack. Okay. The T lymphocytes are very similar. What they do is they also produce an immune system response, but they do not produce antibodies. What they do is that they recognize that there's an antigen, okay? They recognize that there's a foreign organism, and what they do is that they try to defend that your body by killing the cells that have already been infected, the infected cells that have already been infected by that organism. What are the types of T cells that you can have? You can have something that are called helper T cells. We'll talk about that later on. What we'll talk about today are the killer T cells, and you can also have memory T cells, very similar to the B memory cells, okay, that allow you to recall how you attacked that particular pathogen. So how do the T cells know a cell is infected? Basically, when a cell is infected, it will actually expose, or it will kind of display some of the foreign antigens in its own cell membrane so that the immune system can know that that cell is infected. When the immune system knows the cell is infected, what the immune system can do is it can cause the death of that cell, or it can actually break the infected cell, kind of lyse the infected cell so that it can destroy that cell and destroy any pathogen that's inside that cell and it's trying to reproduce through that cell. Okay, so these killer T cells, that's the reason why they're called killer, is because they're going to cause the death or the breaking of the infected cell. And since it causes the death or breaking of the infected cell, it kills everything that's inside that infected cell, which would be the bacteria or the virus that you're trying to get rid of. So that's all we're going to learn for today. We're going to learn about memory in the immune system cells later on, and we're going to learn about the specific of the immune system cells, the B cells and the T cells later on as well. But this is just an overview so that you can kind of understand what B cells and what T cells do and what adaptive immunity is. So hopefully that was helpful.